years ago, in the aftermath of the 2020 presidential election, court challenges left and right, a candidate who refused to concede the election, and to be fair, still refused to concede the election to this day. But what a difference 4 years makes. My guest tonight has been on the show before. He is the author of the book Disproven. His name is Ken Block, and he's up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Ken, good to see you again.
Jim, nice to see you.
All right, so let's just let people know who may not have seen you the last time on the show. You worked with the Trump 2020 campaign when there were these allegations of voter fraud, and as the book suggests, you didn't find any.
Right, I was brought in to do the legal due diligence, the data part of the legal due diligence. The Trump campaign attorneys that I reported to asked me to not only look for evidence of voter fraud that could have changed an election result, but they pushed about 20 different claims of fraud that other people had made to me, and they asked me to weigh in and take the role of the opposing team's expert in court to determine if the claims held up or not, and none of them did.
So as you look at, from your vantage point, what we've seen, I mean, you were not working intimately with the campaign or at all with the campaign this time around. As you watched it and saw how quickly on election night it was a decisive victory for President-elect Trump, did it strike you just the difference in his stance 4 years ago versus this year?
Yeah, I mean, President Trump made it very clear that if he lost, it was only because it could only have been possible because of fraud. He won, so there were no claims of fraud. You know, fraud doesn't typically work that way. There's either fraud and you can prove it and show it, or there's not. It was a decisive win. The Electoral College went heavily to the president this time around. And as I've been playing with some of the results recently, it's very interesting. In the swing states, in 2020, the Libertarian presidential candidate took a lot of votes. In some cases, like in Georgia and Arizona, 5 times as many votes as Trump lost that state by. And in Pennsylvania, as many votes went to the Libertarian as Trump lost that state by. This time, the Libertarian votes melted away. If you remember, President Trump went to the Libertarian convention, promised them he'd get rid of the Department of Education. He brought RFK on board, which is appealing to a lot of libertarians. And the net result is between the Libertarian votes that weren't there this time, and I know they voted for Trump this time, and the Green Party, which was on only one of the swing state ballots in 2020, but in 2024, they were only not on one swing state. They took 100,000 votes, and the Libertarians lost 200,000 votes. Add those up, and that eliminates Biden's margin of victory in the swing states in 2020. It was really quite impressive, and there's a lot of strategy involved to have made that all work out.
Okay, so I want to ask you this. We've heard from Kash Patel, who is his FBI director nominee, who has talked about wanting to go after people who in the media, among others, who, quote, helped Biden rig the election in 2020. As we've indicated, it was not rigged. Do we think that we're going to go down that path, relitigating 2020, even though President-elect Trump won a decisive victory a couple of weeks ago?
So I hope we don't. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is, after 4 years of intense scrutiny, nobody has surfaced any evidence of actionable voter fraud. Enough fraud to have changed an election result, enough fraud that you can prove harmed the president's campaign. It isn't there, and this won't be fruitful. That political capital, the political capital to do something about elections, should be targeted on how can we improve things. There's a golden opportunity for Republicans when they control both chambers of Congress to do some really productive work. So, for example, I can provide lists of hundreds and hundreds of people who voted twice in 2022. And soon enough, we'll be able to do the same thing in 2024. There are literally millions of voters on the voter rolls who carry registrations in multiple states. This has nothing to do with fraud. Right. It has to do with the silly way we conduct our elections, and each state maintains its own voter rolls, and it's very hard for states to track when somebody moves and get rid of it. There are a lot of smart things we can do to fix those problems, and I would I would strongly encourage the Trump campaign to focus their energies on making those changes. Let's get some compromise and consensus, and let's improve our elections across the board, because the way we do it now is the way we did it roughly 200 years ago, and it just doesn't make any sense now.
You had me smiling there, because at one point when I lived in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. within a 5-year span, and I realized I was still technically on the voter rolls in all 3 jurisdictions, although you only vote in one place.
That's right.
By the way, Ken lays a lot of this out in his book. Again, the book is called Disproven. Ken, good to see you again.
Jim, thanks so